This conference will now be recorded.
So I think yesterday we started understanding about the expressions. Okay, different expressions which we use on day to day in the projects. So for that, let me open that component. So this is the component. So all here we are doing, I have defined the two attributes to hold first name and last name, and we are taking two input fields, and we can associate this input with the attribute, so that whatever the value we enter, that value will be automatically assigned to that attribute, and also wherever that attribute is referred, the value will be reflected. So this kind of expression we call as bound expression. Okay, but if you deal with this, so if you give the hash symbol, it's like a unbound expression. So whatever the value is there, only it is restricted to that place where we assign. In other places, wherever it is referred, it won't be reflected in the other places. For example, this v dot last name is referred here. So even though we change this value,
your voice is breaking.
Is it for everyone same thing?
I can hear you well.
Sorry?
I can hear you properly.
Okay.
It's okay from my end also.
Okay. I think someone whoever is saying, I think you need to check your network. Okay. So now, yeah. So now here, just we understood that part yesterday already. It was working fine as for that. If I change some value here, this is reflected automatically, but this is an unbound expression. It is not reflected. Yeah, that is one of the point. Okay. So now, also when we deal with the child component, so sometimes in some of the situations, if there is a requirement, if there is a change in the child component attribute, automatically the value should be reflected in the parent component. In case if you want like that, so how we do, I'll show now. Okay, maybe before we do that, I think this alignment is not good for now. So what I'll do, I'm going to use some lightning. So lightning layout, okay, and to make the alignment, same lightning layout. Okay, so this lightning layout. So what I want, I don't want this to occupy the full width. Okay, only let's say out of 12 parts, if you divide the width into 12 parts, only 4 parts should be occupied. Okay, so what we can do, so here we have, we can use size and divide. Okay, so maybe inside this lightning layout, I'm taking lightning layout item, keeping this like this, and I'm restricting this one to only 4 parts of the screen. Okay, I'm just deploying and see now how it looks. Just to refresh. Now we see only this part it is showing, right? Now, and also so what I want to do, I want to display this in middle. Right? I'm just giving some dummy partition here. For now, let's say I'm giving 4 parts should be occupied, but nothing is there inside that. Here also 4 parts should be there, nothing is there inside. So that way, this will be moved to middle. Okay. So like this. Okay. So maybe I want to enclose this in one card so that to make it looking better. Okay. So here I'm taking lightning card. Okay. So inside the card, I'm keeping this content. And the card title, let's say I'm doing as form. Let's say main form, something like this. Okay. So to make it looking better. Okay. So now I think this first name, last name, all these things are closely aligned and it is not looking good. And also how I want some padding. Okay. So if you want to give the padding, if you go to this Lightning Design System, Utilities, Padding. So let's say I want padding around. Okay, let's say I'm giving this. So I want to give that for these components. So that those will be looking better, right? So now if you see a little better, even if you want more padding, maybe you can say medium, or maybe I'm removing doublets small, so that you get more space. Okay. So now, so one more thing. So this first name and last name, I want to see in the same row, not one after other. Okay. So same row if you want to show. So what we can do? This again, I'm enclosing these things to deal with the arrangement of the layout. I'm keeping that inside one of the layout, and inside that I'm going to take some layout items. And each and every element I'm keeping in one layout item. Okay. So now what I will do? So let's say inside this layout, if you divide the size into 12 parts, I want this to occupy only 6. That means half of the screen. In the same way, this one also should occupy only half of the screen. Okay, and also this third input, maybe I want that to occupy the full width. Okay, full width means we give 12. Okay, this is just for alignment. Okay, so here it should occupy the full width. So now let's see how it deals. Refresh. Right now, I think first name and last name is good. this is somewhere right side it is coming. The reason might be the layout we have to allow spreading into multiple rows. So for layout, you see one of the attribute multiple rows is equal to true. Okay, so I'm giving that. Otherwise, it is not supporting multiple rows. It will try to align in the same row. So that's why we are seeing this kind of result. So if you want to spread it into multiple rows after 12 parts consumed, we have to use this. Okay. So now if you refresh, now I think it is looking better. Right? And also this form from top. So if you want to give some top side, we also have padding, margin similar to padding. So we have margin. Okay, so let's say I want from top. I want to decide some margin. Okay, so here I'm clicking on margin in the lighting design system. I think it is taking some time. It's taking some time to respond. Okay, now let me click on margin. So here, so we have margin from top, right? So let's say I'm going with this class. Okay, so now I'll give that margin for this. And this is just to deal with the alignment. Okay. Go back and refresh. So you are seeing like this, right? So now whatever I type, right, it is reflecting. But if you use the bound expression, you can also see that here. Okay. So it's like that. Now I want to show you from child component to parent component. So when there is a change in the parent component, the value should be automatically reflected in the child. Maybe if there is a change in the child, it should reflect in the parent like that. So for that, maybe I'll create one component with the name expressions child. Right? So one of the component. Okay, already I think here maybe I did not mention the related components. Okay, let me create one of the child component quickly. So plus F1 Aura component. I'm giving as expressions child and execute. Okay, so now that's it. So expressions child, and then this is the component. And here I'm just copying this part, this card part, and just I'm pasting here only up to that card part. Okay, so now here in this component also first name and last name, right? Maybe either with the same name or with a different name also you can maintain, right? So let's say here I'm maybe defining like that, right? So we have in the same way. Okay. I'm just deploying this, and this component I'm referring in our main component. This is our main component, right? here in this part, the first 4 parts of the screen, I'm including. To refer the child component C colon expressions child. Right? This is easy to include, right? But when you are including the child component, if you want to supply some values to the attributes, right? So we give the name of the attribute and supply the values. Okay. Here for this, I'm supplying B dot first name. Okay. And so for this, I'm supplying V dot last name. That means whatever the last name attribute value is there, that one we are supplying to the child component. So whatever the first name is there, that one we are supplying to child component. So let's see. So what will happen? Now I'm going to make change in the first name in the parent component. Okay. So since while referring the child component, we are supplying this parent component attribute into this child component, and it is a bound expression. Automatically, this value also reflected in the child component. Okay, so all this result is coming from the child component, right? So maybe for us to differentiate, this is a child form actually, right? Deploy. Okay, so now it's automatically, if I make change, what is happening? Here, whatever changes we are making is automatically supplying, and this is automatically reflected in the child, right? So now here, whatever I'm changing, because here I'm giving as unbound. So even though I change, it is not able to, even though for the child component, here we are referring as bound, but still, since from here, this is the place where we are entering, so it is not reflecting, right? So that's what is happening. Okay. So now, just to refresh, in the child component, I am giving, right? Right. In child component, I am changing last name. Right? So in the child component, so I think in the child component also, I have taken this as a unbounded. Now let's say in the child component, I am making this as bound. That means it should automatically reflect in the parent. Right? So now why it is not changed? In child also, I made it as a bound. Right? So now, if you see here, whatever I'm giving, it is reflected here, right? But here it is not reflected because that is a unbound expression. So that's about the bound and unbound. Some situations when you include the child component and supplying the attributes like that, sometimes we don't want the changes to reflect. When you make change in the parent, that should not be reflected again and again. Or when you make change in the child component, that should not be reflected in the parent. In those situations, we can make use of this concept.
Srini, can you rerun this and fill up the main form? Basically, mainly the last name field, which is unbound. I just wanted to check whether it goes or not. So still it is not going even into the child as well. Okay.
Yeah, so here because this is unbound, right? This whatever we are entering is unbound. This is not allowing to reflect to other places. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, got it.
Yeah, that's about that. And now maybe I will, let's say I want to show some messages, some validation messages. Let's say this form is not filled. I want to show some messages. Okay. So what I'll do, I'm going to take one card and maybe display some messages. Okay. So in our main component, so we have this third part, right? Third four parts, the right side. So here I'm taking one card. So here, let's say I'm giving the name as messages. Here I want to show some messages. The first message what I want to show, if the first name and last name both are not entered, I want to display a message saying you should enter both first name and last name. Okay. So that expression how we give, let's see. Okay. For that, so if you want to show the messages, either you can go to this Lightning Design System website, and here we have to use alert. Go to component blueprints, and you can click on alert, and you can copy some of the variation how you want to show. This is one way. And let's say you don't want to copy this entire HTML and play with that. So one of the easiest way, you can go to component library. So basically, in the component library with the Lightning namespace, we don't have any standard component called alert. Okay. So we have other namespaces, right? So we have other namespaces. So I'll show you. UI is also one of the namespace. So basically, initially when Salesforce introduced Lightning components, initially they introduced only these UI elements. Later only Salesforce introduced Lightning namespace elements. Okay. The difference between Lightning namespace components and UI namespace components. UI namespace components won't apply the styles, the Lightning Design System styles automatically. We have to refer those style classes. Then only this will be applied with the styles. But Lightning input and the Lightning related components, if you use, the standard styles will be automatically applied. So that's the difference. Maybe here I want to show the message, right? I want to show some alert message. So here I have message. So click on messages. Okay. So now these are different styles. Maybe you can pick one of the style which you want to show. Right? So let's say I want to display the error. Right? So copy this one. Keeping this error here. So when exactly, but I don't want to display this error every time. Right? So conditionally, I want to display this error. Okay. For now, it is displaying immediately. I want to control hiding or showing this error. Okay, I want to show this error only if the first name and last name, if any one of the value is not entered, then I want to display error. If both are entered, I don't want to display. Right? So now, to control the visibility of this message, I'm taking Aura if you want to conditionally show or hide elements on the UI. We use Aura if. Okay, here Aura if we have is true, and here I'm going to use some expression. So when exactly you want to display in dynamic way. So if either first name is not entered, last name is not entered. Now this is a dynamic expression. Now here I'm saying not v dot first name. Right? In JavaScript, false value, truthy value. Right? If there is some content in the variable, system take as a truth value. When system consider as false, if the variable is holding 0 or empty or null, that time it is a false value. So here I'm checking not b dot first name. That means some content is not there in the first name variable. So that time R, right? I want R condition, right? So here R, v dot last name. Either first name is not there or last name is not there, then I am going to display this message. Right? Please enter both. So maybe first name and last name. For now, this message I'm showing. Let's see how it looks. Deploy. Okay. So now if you see, both are not there and it is showing. Now, if you enter the values, right? Then I think I'm expecting it should not show, right? So that is not happening. Something is wrong. So not having first name or not having last name, then it is going to display this. I think it looks like it is correct. Okay, so now the problem is due to the bound expression. Even though we are changing, that is not reflecting to this. Okay, for now, I need to make it as a, again, bound. Okay, to avoid that. So maybe this one I want to comment. Control / it will comment. Okay, now deploy and see. Then now if you see it is hiding, so like that. But we can't say like now if you see this message is not correct, right? Now this message is not correct because only first name is not entered, last name is entered, right? So I mean these things I want to control. Okay. So now, so when exactly we need to display this message? If both are not having value, right? First name, not having first name and not having last name. So that's the situation we need to display this error, right? So inside this, again, I'm taking one R if to control the visibility. R if is true. So here I am checking not b dot first name, and this time we need n. Not having, both are not having, right? Last name. So then only we need to display this message, right? But if you see end, right, end is not working like this. It won't work. Okay. So here in the expressions, sometimes alternative to this end. So these kind of things. So here, when we see the error, we have to do like this. Okay, even if you refer to the documentation, you can find it. So on day-to-day when we work, we see these kind of things. So when you use normal and then if you see the error, you have to use like this. Okay. So now so this is deployed. Now let's see. Just to refresh. Now if I enter some value, now it is not showing that value, right? Okay, so now maybe they entered either first name or last name, right? Now we need to check for the else condition. If this is not satisfied, that means either user entered first name or last name. So we need to identify which one is not entered and display that message. So when we use if you want else condition, right? If you want if else, so for else condition, inside the RI, if this condition is not satisfied, we need to use Aura attribute. Okay, so here name, here we have to give else. So sorry. So here we have to use Aura set and attribute as else. This is like else. Okay. When the if condition is not satisfied, so we use Aura set. So this is like a facet. So we are setting. So if you see, this is one of the component. Into that component, if you want to embed some markup in some specified areas, so there is a concept called facet. So in our next topic, we will understand more about this. Okay, using Aura set, this is like else condition. So in the else situation, again we have two conditions. Again, here I'm taking Aura is true. If first name is not there, right? First name, not first name, v dot first name, right? Make sure to use v. If the first name is not entered, okay, so then, so we are going to display a message. Please enter first name, right? Again, inside that, so if the first name is entered, anyway, it is going to come to inside only if either one of the value is not entered, right? In the else scenario, you can say last name is not entered, right? Again, I'm taking one more else. So here, I'm saying please enter last name. Okay, so like that. And also here, so one other thing what I want to show you. So when you are using like this, which is not looking good, right? It's looking awkward as a developer while seeing. So alternative to this, what you can do, you can also have end function. We also have end function. You can make use of that end function. So I'm just removing this, giving comma. Here I'm giving end. And so that means both are not entered. Right? You can also use like this. And or maybe here you can also use or instead of this 5 symbol. Okay. So using and or, those are also possible within the expressions. Okay. So far, so let's maybe deploy and see. And so something is wrong. If a message must be terminated, the matching end type. Line number 44. Is this Aura if is ended here? Okay, that's the problem. So now let's deploy. So here directly I'm right clicking and deploying because we don't have any controller JS, nothing. That one UI we have for this. That's why I'm right clicking and deploying. Right? Otherwise, you need to right click on the folder and deploy. Okay. Now go back and refresh. So now please enter both first name and last name, right? Please enter last name, right? If you enter both, anyway, it is not going to display. Let's say if you are entered only last name, it's saying please enter first name, right? So now, so what I want to display, if both are entered, okay, so then I want to show one more message saying that this form is ready to be submitted. Okay. So now, if you see, this is entire thing is our outer condition, right? Or if both are, any one of the values not entered, finally it will enter inside and display this. For the outer one, I'm taking again RR set attribute. I'm taking else, and here I'm going to display. I'm saying form is ready to be submitted. I can give like that, right? So anyway, if both are not so true, then only it will enter inside. So here, so maybe I want to display this kind of message. Right? So form is ready to be submitted. Or maybe for a change, if you want to display from here, right? If you see here, we have many different types. You can also choose one of this type and display. Okay. One of the style, whatever you like. So we can display this one. Okay. So maybe here, what exactly, one more thing I want to display. I want to display a warning message. Okay, maybe to make it simple, let's go with this only. When it goes to else, that means entered both. Here again, if the first name and last name both are same, I want to display one message. Right? Sorry is true. Here B dot first name is equal to B dot last name. Right? If both are same, I want to display a warning message. Right? Warning message maybe like this. First name, maybe I'm displaying first name and the last name, both are same. Please check. Okay, so this message I'm showing. So otherwise, so let's say both are maybe not same, then you are ready to submit the form again. Here I'm keeping and confirm form is ready to be submitted. But the thing is, for this, really no need to wait for this. Even though warning is there, that message should be displayed. Okay, that's why here I'm displaying. Okay, even though warning is there, warning means it should not stop us to submit. Okay, giving you can submit the form. Yeah, this message is just I'm showing. Now here, one of the thing here we're using double equal to, right? Double equal to, less than, so less than like that. So here alternative to equal to, we use like this. Double equal to will work in some situations. If it is not working, alternative to double equal to, we use equal to. For not equal to, we use any. Okay, for less than, we use like this. Less than equal to, like this. Okay, so anyway, if you see the documentation, you can understand. So let's say here I'm using this. Okay, deploy. Go back and refresh. first name and last name both are same. Please check. Okay, so like this. Okay, so somehow, so to hide and show and how we use the expressions, trying to explain these possible things. Okay, so that's about this. Okay, so when there is a need to use expressions, either and or maybe some situations if you need to use, we have to use this instead of double equal to, we have to use this. So those kind of things just understand. And bound and unbound, one of the feature also we discussed as part of this example. Okay, so with this we're done. Okay, so any questions on understanding? So maybe I did not explain about the ternary operator, right? I did not explain about the ternary operator. So maybe to explain that, so what I'll do here, maybe here I want to take that ternary operator I want to use and control some part of this message. Okay. Let's say I want to add some additional message here. I'm taking one expression. So now here I'm saying v dot first name is equal to last name. The first name and last name both are same, right? So here additionally you can submit the form, but there are warnings. Let's say I'm displaying this message. Okay, else I'm not displaying it. Okay, so this ternary operator is controlling. If both are equal, then for this you can submit the form, but there are some. So maybe say there are some warnings. Okay, so else maybe I'm just showing the full stop. Okay, this will control this text. So, but since this entire thing is in expression, now let's save this.
Srini, single code is missing from the for but na?
One single
Before
code is
but.
missing.
But before but.
We have comma, right? Before but I'm giving comma.
Okay.
Okay, now just refresh. But there are warnings, right? Both are not same, then it is keeping full stop, right? So like that. So this is the ternary operator. Okay, like apex, how we use in the same way. Okay, these are some of the expressions. So with that, we are done with that example. Okay, so one of the next feature is about the component composition. That means when we already we are using that in one component, if you refer a other component, we are calling that as a child, right? So from the parent, some markup also we can embed into child. If we have a parent component, we have a child component. From the parent component, in some part of the child component, if you want to embed some HTML snippet, those kind of things are possible by using this component composition, the Aura composition. Okay, I'll try to explain about that. So for that, I'm creating one of the components. So I'm creating a parent component and a child component and show you the difference. Okay. So I'm creating a component with the name Aura composition. So this is a component, and inside this, so basically when we have a component created, internally there is a hidden attribute called body. Body attribute will be internally maintained by the system. Okay. Now we have some information. This is the content of the parent. So internally, right? So the top level attribute, top level tag inside the Aura component. Here we are giving like this. Internally, how Salesforce takes this. So we have Aura set attribute body. Right? So whatever the content we keep inside the Aura component, all the content will be internally maintained inside this. Okay. But for us, every time defining this and keeping the content is optional. Okay, even though you are not using this, okay, still Salesforce will take care of maintaining this inside this body. Okay, so technically, whatever the content we write inside the component will enclose inside this body attribute. Okay, but defining this is optional. Okay, so maybe I'm not commenting and maybe I'm deploying and see what is the result. Same result will come. Okay, but defining this, they made it as optional. Okay, so let's see. Now, here, component name, I think I have deployed it. This is a component name. And now if you see the preview, right, this is the content from parent. Either you use this or you don't use, the result will be the same. Okay, so that's the one of the point. Okay. This is as part of the compo. This top level body attribute will be there for each component. So not only this is our custom component which we created, right? So there are some standard components like Aura tab set. So maybe if you go to the component library, so go to Lightning. So we have tabs, one of the component tab set. So let's say quickly, so I'm copying this, right? So when you copy this, and maybe I'm going to keep only one tab for what you know. So internally, this is having one content, right? So technically, that is also like it will be inside that. Keeping content inside that tab component. We have to use like this and the content, keep the content. Right? Now, what is happening from this component? This is our main component. This is one of the custom component which we are referring in our component. Into that, so not only maybe here I'm supplying text, if you type some HTML content, so all that thing will go. Okay, so but defining this is optional. Okay, this kind of things just understand. Okay, so now, so what I am going to show you, I'm going to create a child component, and I refer that component here and supply some content into that component from here. Okay, so let's see how we do that. So for that, go to this, create this child component, press F1, create Aura component. So create this, and this is the one, right? So inside this, I want to maybe, so what I want for now, I'm not doing anything, but what I want, so whatever the content from parent component we are going to apply, that content I want to read from here. Okay. So basically, technically, if you want to read the body of the parent component and the child component, we have to define one of the attributes. Aura attribute, name equal to, let's say I'm giving body, and type equal to, we have a type called Aura component. Okay, we have a type called Aura component array. So what exactly it will hold? The parent component markup, whatever we send, that it can, in this type, it can hold. Okay, so that's the purpose. It's like a facet to hold the parent component markup, right? Facet to hold the parent component markup. Okay, so just understand about that. So now, and this one, if you want to show that content here, we say v dot body. Okay. Now, from the parent component, whatever the content we supply, that content will be folded into this, and it will show that content here. Okay. So now, so let's see how it works. First, I am saving this child component. Invalid type Aura. Deploy. So I need to say dot. Okay. So now it is deployed. Now refer this component. So here what we are supplying UI markup into the child body. The child component name, I think this is the name. C. Right? In between, write the HTML snippet what you want to supply. Right? Technically, as per the rule, we have to give like this, right? And inside from here we have to supply. So let's say I'm taking one H1 tag. Let's say this is content. This is the content I am supplying. Okay. So just deploy. Now this content will be assigned to this, and we see the information here. Okay. So now when you see the preview of the child component, whatever we supplied in the parent, that we have to see, right? So maybe now here, so I'm the content added in the parent. Anyway, this is a preview which we are adding here, right? So now if I try to see the result of this component, I have to see this content in the child directly. So now Here I am referring the child component, not parent. Right? Now child component. So basically inherit that. So now here this, and here we are referring right to the child. So it should come actually. So just I'm checking. This is a child component, attribute, body. So here it can inherit that actually. Just refresh. Okay. So now maybe in the parent also just including that body is important. Let's find the body here. Okay, so here something is wrong here. So Aura set attribute body, and I'm supplying this content. Here we are reading the parent body. Just refresh. So anyway, I think directly if you supply. So for this, I think here itself it is working. We need to see the preview of that one only. So here when we directly see the preview of this one, so always it will try to get the body of the parent. Right? This is a custom component. For this, there is nothing, no parent is there here at this point of time here in the hierarchy. So here itself, so whatever previously we referred, we can say that it's working. Okay, so here basically in the child component, in general, if you want to assign the attribute value, we have to refer that attribute and assign it. But with the inside content, we are supplying, and that content is taking and showing. Even though it is in the parent component, it is able to show that content. Okay. So it's like that. But in general, when you refer the child component, we don't supply the markup. Right? Here we have the capability to supply the markup. So that is what is happening. So that's why it is able to show the markup, whatever we supply. And also here, one of the thing I want to show, again, this is optional. Okay, even though you don't give, by default, the content, whatever we keep inside this will be taken as a body for the child component. Okay, so still, if I give like this, also in the child component, so still you are seeing on the content from added in the parent component. Okay, so still that is working. And also one more thing, this is optional. If you don't define this also, still it will work. Internally, even though you don't define, still system maintain a attribute with the body with this R component type. Okay, still if you go here and refresh, still it is working, right? So, but when it is mandatory to define this, so apart from body, let's say I want to add some photo, I want to add some header, right? I want to give some custom name and add some snippet into that. So when you have like that, that time we have to mention that. Let's say header. Right? This won't be available by default. Okay. So now in the parent component, while defining that, if you want to set the value into that header part, right, we have to use, for sure, now this is mandatory to use Aura set. If it is body, it is optional to use. If you define something else, let's say it should, the content to go inside of this. So then that time it is mandatory to define attribute, and we have to then supply the content. Okay. Now let's say here to supply the content, I'm going to this maybe some text, some heading text. So heading large, suppose say this, somehow I want to copy this. Okay. So this one I'm supplying. Okay, as a heading. So now what it will do, this content, it will set into this. Now to show that, I'm saying v dot head. Okay. Now let's see how it looks. So deploy this. Time is reached. Okay, deploy this. Yeah, so it is deployed right now. So let's go and see the review of this. You see that. So you can give some custom name, whatever you want, and from parent you can supply. It is like a facet, the placeholder to supply our parent markup into the child markup. So that's the concept of this composition, how we use body, how we use Aura component. So these things, even though sometimes we don't deal on day to day, or maybe in the complex project for sure, we see these kind of things. We try to ignore on what is this. But in interviews, people are asking. Okay. So for interview purpose also, if you know these things, it is good. And also technically when you work, if you know the concept understanding in a better way, it is good. Okay. So that's it.
So it's basically we can say it's we are creating a reusable components, right? And we are using it in a different component.
Yeah, maybe you can understand like this, right? When you refer the component as a child, so far what we can supply to the child, we can supply the data through attribute. So far we know that, right? We can supply the data through attributes. Every time we are doing that. If you want to supply the UI markup, some HTML logic, whatever the UI logic you write, you want to set that UI logic into one of the placeholder in the child component. So that time we consider using this component composition. So when we start with LWC, there we have a concept called slot. Okay, this concept is equivalent to the slot concept. Means it is giving the capability for us from parent component embedding some markup into the child component placeholder. It's like that. Okay. So any questions on understanding this?
Yes, Srinu, just one question. Just to confirm, when we try to do the preview in the child component, we can't see the information from the parent, right? When we do the preview on the child component.
Yeah, yes. So it cannot be that it will. So someone should set some content into this. Right? Directly, if you say v.body, if you see the preview, you don't see anything.
Because we don't know the parent, right? There is no way to reference from the child to the parent.
Yeah, yes. Only from parent we can supply the markup into child. From child, supplying to parent is not possible. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so maybe when we start with the LWC, we see one concept called slot. Okay, it is similar to that. We have a concept called named slot and unnamed slot. Here body is like a named, so this is like unnamed. So only one time we can supply. So this header and footer and whatever you supply, it's like a named slot, right? To supply into that, we have to supply the name. It's like that. Okay. Okay. So any other questions before ending? Okay. So tomorrow we discuss about, so maybe this public, global, private. So when we use those things, and we understand about the inheritance. We have inheritance using extents and increments. So what is the difference between inheritance and this component composition? Which is better to use? So those things we understand. Okay. So that's tomorrow's topic and a few other things we did. Okay. So before ending today, any questions?
Sorry, one more. Are you going to commit these changes to GitHub?
Yeah. So did you receive any invitation? I mean, sorry, the invitation for the GitHub?
Yeah, already started. Already got it. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So maybe let me push these changes quickly. Okay. So yes, and
Thank you.
18th August. So I have committed in my local system, and I need to push to. So actually nowadays, GitHub is not allowing to use the password. So we need to create one access token, and we need to use that one. So what I did in the GitHub settings, I generated one access token. Already in my system, the GitHub credentials are stored. In Mac, this is how I have to do. I opened that and I replaced the password with the access token. Then it started working. So now, yeah, our changes are there in the, right? Now our changes are there in the GitHub. You can look into this latest code. And also, I think the nodes, right? How do you want to access these nodes? The nodes also you can access. Okay, so go to static resources in the GitHub. So I have shared this folder. What is that? GitHub. This is the one, right? So now to access our component, you have to go to this Force tab, and here we have, and to see the nodes, go to static resources and click on this. Whatever I am typing, that nodes also you can see. Okay. So we'll continue tomorrow. Okay. Thank you.